All right, so my name's CJ. I'm going to be hosting the webinar today. I'm the client acquisition manager. At the end of the webinar, I will be doing a demo of the Songtrust platform, so make sure to stick around for that. I'm also joined here by Julia, our publishing operations manager, and Kyle, the associate director of publishing operations. Do you guys want to kind of introduce yourselves, tell everyone how you got to Songtrust and what you do here?
Yeah, so I'm Kyle. I've been with Songtrust now for going on 3 years, and have really seen it kind of grow over that time period. Before that, I'd done a lot of licensing and copyright work for many of the majors, and yeah, that's about 6 or 7 years into the industry now, and I'm still trying to figure it all out as we go.
Hi, I'm Julia. I came to Songtrust about 2.5 years ago from working in YouTube rights management. So when I came to Songtrust, I focused a lot on our YouTube monetization, and I still do, and also corresponding with our clients and answering questions they have, and making sure our processes are as efficient as they can be.
Perfect. All right, let's take a look at what we'll be going over today. There's going to be a lot of topics covered. Some are going to be a little bit more complex than others, but hopefully at the end of this, you'll be able to take away, a general better understanding of what music publishing is, some additional insight into the essential pieces that really make up publishing and how that plays into your overall revenue collection, especially if you don't have publishing set up currently. And of course, we're going to go through Songtrust, how we fit into this whole system, and allow you to see how we can better utilize our knowledge and our platform to get the most royalties for your songs. So with that being said, I will pass it over now to Kyle and Julia, and we'll dive right into things.
Great. Let's go. So, music publishing, the definition of it is, it's really the business of protecting and promoting your song copyrights. And collecting the royalties on those, much like any intellectual property, art, whatever it might be. Music publishing is truly the business that connects the royalties and the songwriters and artists together. To me on a personal level, what music publishing is really the percentage of money that songwriters don't always know about or don't know how to collect. With a lot of our clients and a lot of personal friends and things that have gone into it, it could be the difference between doing this as a career and doing it as a hobby. Maybe it pays the rent or whatever it does, despite sales and touring and all those things. So it's an important piece, of the whole pie to any creator, really. So what does it mean to be a rights owner? As a songwriter, you may write a song, contribute to a song, be awarded a split to that copyright, to that work. And there you own a part of that. If you wrote the whole thing, you own it all. And, over time, we'll generate royalties on that. To be a rights owner in publishing as a songwriter, you're going to own your writer's share of that and your publishing share of that. Depending on the decisions you make going forward, that's all subject to change. The more people you work with, the more rights owners there are in a given copyright, and you're gonna, if you solely write a song, you're gonna have 100% as a writer. You're gonna have your 100% as a publisher, and you have approval rights. You have creative rights to all of those things. And again, when you start introducing publishers and labels and things, that is subject to change. But that's really the core of where it all starts. You own everything and you have creative control.
Perfect. Let's go into the composition, the recording side of publishing.
So this is kind of a complex diagram. I'll try to simplify it as much as possible, but essentially when you listen to a song, you're listening to two different copyrights. The master recording copyright, that's the actual audio file, that's bounced down to an MP3 or, what have you. And then you have the composition. And that's what we're going to be focusing on here, this whole left side of the diagram. And a composition is the music and lyrics that make up a song. So those music and lyrics are owned by the songwriters who wrote it. and the songwriters as a publisher. So as a songwriter, you are a publisher, and you are entitled to performance and mechanical royalties that are generated by your composition. So we'll go into all of this into more detail in a little bit, but essentially performance royalties are collected by PROs, or otherwise known as CMOs, and split into a writer and publisher share. And then mechanical royalties are collected by mechanical collection societies. A few examples in the US are HFA and Music Reports, and those are paid out to publishers as well.
Yeah, and we thought it would definitely be helpful to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the writer share versus publisher share. So we'll kind of go over that now as well.
Right. So the writer and publisher share was kind of put into practice some odd years ago to protect writers. Essentially, songwriters were signing deals with publishers and assigning away all of their rights to their compositions. So the writer and publisher share was put into practice to allocate a percentage of performance royalties that go directly to a writer. So if you're affiliated with a PRO, which we'll also discuss in a little bit, but if you're affiliated with a PRO, you're getting paid from them a writer's share and a publisher share, and that's split right down the middle, 50-50. And so if you do sign a deal with a publisher, or you have a publishing administrator, that publisher will collect that 50% publisher share on your behalf, and that writer share will always go directly to you from your PRO.
So I think it's definitely important to bring up now, but when you first register with a PRO, are you getting the writer share and publisher share automatically?
It kind of depends on the society. For example, I know with BMI, if you're affiliated with BMI, they will automatically be paying you your writer and publisher share if you don't have a publisher. You'll receive 2 separate checks as if you're 2 different entities, but it will all come to you. On the other hand, ASCAP, if you're affiliated as a writer with ASCAP, that publisher share won't get paid out until you affiliate as a publisher, or until you have a publisher who is there to collect for you. So if you're only affiliated as a writer, you're only getting your writer share. You're missing the other half. And so let's talk a little bit about splits. When you write a song by yourself, you own 100% of the copyright. You are 100% the writer, you're 100% the publisher, until or unless you decide to grant part of that publisher share to a publisher. If you write it with other writers, it's up to you and the other writers how you want to divide the copyright, how you want to divide your ownership. So the example we have here, there are 2 writers and they've decided to split it 50-50. That's not always the case. You can really decide amongst yourself whatever makes the most sense. And we really recommend that writers are getting these splits in writing before you leave the room. You write the song, you put the splits in writing, you put it on something we like to call a split sheet, sign it, have all the parties sign it, and then you'll have a document of exactly which part of the copyright you own.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times that we see this every day, where people come in and say that other people claimed their portion of the song or the publisher share. It's really important to make sure you have this all in writing before even you distribute the music. So there's no conflict, there's no questioning, it's all there in writing for you.
Yeah, it's surprisingly common. And even with big tracks, when you're starting to carve up really high earning songs, it becomes a very complex thing. Doing this up front alleviates all that. If something goes into conflict, all the money gets held. And it's interesting how common it is. So there are things like the split sheets and getting it all out there. There's also some other services that have been popping up over time that are really trying to encourage creators to put metadata in to manage it in a legitimate way. I believe even now some of your DAW systems, your workspace, your Avid and Pro Tools stuff are starting to implement those concepts into the early stages of creation to only benefit writers and artists in the long term. So let's talk a little bit about the common kind of publishing deals and what you'd expect to see as a songwriter, as an artist, and as a publisher. So co-publishing deals are very common. And what happens in a co-publishing deal is you're assigning some of the rights to your publisher. They are very commonly going to take 50% of the publishing share, and own that. And for that, we'll probably give you some additive services, usually in the creative realm, in the A&R realm, and try to enhance, the scope in which your copyrights are being viewed. There's a lot of value in that, but also it brings in the question of, are you comfortable giving away some of your ownership? And a publishing admin deal, also very common, is usually retaining 100% ownership, and you're giving away a fee. You're giving away a fee to have them collect on your royalties, to register your songs, and do a lot of the admin tasks involved in publishing, especially when you're talking on a global scale, and it's very complex. Sometimes creative services can come into those deals and pitch for sync and whatnot. But at the very base level, it is registering your songs, collecting on it, and paying you. As a publisher, something very common is sub-publishing deals. If you are a publisher or an entity within a given country, and you need to have scope in perhaps another country, many countries, there are publishing companies that I kind of identify in the sub-publishing market that will, for a fee, admin you with those local societies, and potentially also pitch for sync in those countries and do those things. It's very common for a successful publisher in any given country to have a wide network of sub-publishers who represent their catalog in those countries.
So Kyle, as an individual artist, how do you know which one of these deals would be best for you? I know that there's a lot of variables that go into that, but at what stage are you ready for these different types of deals?
Yeah, it's very, situational. As an artist, as a songwriter, you really need to determine where you're at in your career, what you have, what you don't have. You have to be very real with yourself. A co-publishing deal that might be very common with a major. If you as an artist or a songwriter don't have a management company or, some of these people being able to pitch for sync and all these things, being able to expose your music is very beneficial. So signing a co-pub deal and giving up some of those rights is probably worth it in the long run, because you're going to get some marketing, you're going to get publicity, you're going to get sync, and they're going to match you with other artists on their catalog, and it is beneficial. There are some songwriters and artists out there who have those things, who have the relationships, who have separate deals with sync companies and so on and so forth, where an admin deal makes sense. And sometimes, in their cases, less is more. And sub-publishing deals is really dependent on if you're doing really well in those countries. If you're a US-based writer, but you do really well in Spain or France, it's worth exploring your options there and seeing what you have. And now, of course, there are potential for companies such as our Songtrust or your majors and everything that do have a global scale and have you all protected in that right. So it really depends on where you view yourself and where you view yourself in a couple years and thinking ahead.
So that was kind of a high-level overview of publishing. I know it's quite a bit, but we're going to get into even more detail here. So let's move right along to CMOs, or collective management organizations. This makes up PROs, performing rights organizations, and mechanical collection societies. There are a few examples up here that we've already discussed and will continue to discuss. Every PRO and a collection society is different. There's usually one in each territory. None are the same. They all have, different rights that they collect. So certain societies outside of the US will collect both the performance and mechanical right. Each one will have, a different requirement in order to affiliate. different fees to affiliate, things like that. So make sure to do your research, but essentially it just makes sense to affiliate with the society in your home territory.
Yeah, and a question I see a lot on like the client acquisition side is why can't I just go to these societies individually and affiliate myself? I know I was talking to our CEO Justin yesterday, and he started to explain the complexity of joining some of these different societies. And Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about, because you're kind of in charge of that here, what it takes to affiliate with these?
The affiliation process as a company. Or as an entity, whether you're an individual or an organization, is just very complex. Affiliating yourself as a writer with your home society probably doesn't seem that complex. But trying to affiliate in other countries, you really have to follow their rules and regulations. And sometimes that means upfront money, fees, sometimes very high fees. It might require that you have something, an office in that country, a bank account in that country. You might have to have a song that's a local cut in that country. So it becomes infinitely more difficult to do that, and every society around the world is slightly different. It's very much a time-intensive investment, and also very much a monetary investment. It has taken some of your global publishing companies years and years to develop those relationships. It's nearly impossible as a songwriter and to do that yourself. I would say truly impossible.
Another question we get a lot is, I'm already affiliated with a PRO. Isn't that enough? Do I need a publisher? And the answer is no, it's not enough. And yes, you do need a publisher. So let's talk a little bit about the different royalties that you are owed as the writer of a composition. So we talked before about performance versus mechanical royalties. A PRO is only licensing the performance right. They're only collecting your performance royalties, and they're doing it the best and most efficiently in the territory where they're based. So if you're affiliated with a society in the US, they're licensing your works for the performance right and collecting that mostly in the US. They can collect outside of the home territory via reciprocal deals that they have with other societies around the world. But we typically see that the collection through these reciprocal deals is really inefficient, takes a long time. When the royalties come in, the lines in the statement are pretty sparse, not really very detailed. And so what a publisher will do is register your songs at every society around the world, so that each society is licensing the song within that territory and then collecting the royalties from that territory on your behalf. So when I talk about a performance royalty, this is generated when your song is performed publicly. So that can be playing in a restaurant or bar or a store, anywhere, a business, a place of business. Performance royalties are also generated from radio, terrestrial radio, as well as interactive radio, and from streaming services. There's a performance royalty generated. Mechanical royalties, on the other hand, are generated from sales, so physical sales, CD and vinyl, or digital downloads. And there's also mechanical royalty generated from streaming. So streaming generates both mechanical and performance royalties for the composition alone. That's separate from the royalties generated by the master recording. And then going back to why your PRO is not enough, why you need a publisher, a performing rights organization does not collect mechanical royalties. I mentioned before that there are some organizations, actually most outside of the US, they have the performance and mechanical society all kind of together in one organization, and so they are licensing for both rights. So depending on where you're affiliated, your society may be licensing your mechanical rights. However, again, every society is different. There's always special requirements. You may be required to have a publishing entity, a business entity set up in that territory. So it can get really complicated to make sure you're collecting all of the royalties that you're owed.
So we just got a question that we want to kind of address. Does Songtrust register my songs with international agencies?
Why, yes, we do.
Yeah, we do. I mean, it's really the core of what we've built Songtrust on, is kind of that network I was talking about, of how difficult it is. For as long as Songtrust has been around, that's been one of our main objectives, is to continue to build a truly global network. Right now we register and collect from about 95+% of the royalty paying out world. So it's very all-encompassing. And we work with them directly, develop those relationships directly, don't use third parties, and have been successful, and will hopefully continue to build on that, in the years to come.
Perfect. Let's dive deeper into the royalties.
So I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the last slide, but performing rights organizations, here we have a few examples in the US and Canada. Those are collecting your performance royalties, and like I mentioned earlier, paying out the writer share directly to the writer, and the publisher share to the publisher, who is sometimes the writer. And then the mechanical royalty is collected by mechanical rights societies. So HFA is one example of a mechanical rights organization in the US. CMOs is one in Canada. This is kind of a North American-centric view of this, but it's the same situation in pretty much every territory. No matter what, you're going to want a publisher to help you collect outside of your home territory.
What are the barriers for entry for to work and affiliate with like a company like HFA, for instance?
HFA has some requirements. One is that you have to be a publishing entity, and I think they're actually getting a little bit more strict on what type of publishing entity you are. So we'll get into this a bit later, but as a individual songwriter, you can create a publishing entity, but just having that entity is not necessarily enough to affiliate with HFA specifically.
Yeah, they're going to judge you on some factors and ultimately want to ensure that you're generating royalties and
Making that money.
and making that money. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's definitely quite difficult, if not impossible, for an individual to affiliate with a society like HFA.
So probably one of the main questions we get, and probably many publishers, is the concept of retroactive royalties. As many of you probably know, being a songwriter or a creator, it's possible that you just didn't know publishing existed. You didn't know you were missing out on a royalty. You didn't know you were missing out on half of your streaming royalty, or a portion of your streaming royalties, rather. So we get a lot of people that come to us hoping that they can collect on the things that they might have missed over the years. In most cases, the answer is yes. Most societies, and it's all dependent on what kind of income type it is, what kind of royalty type it is, and also how far back we need to go. I would say, generally speaking, most societies, whether performance or mechanical, are going to go back either 2 to potentially 7 years. That window of time is pretty consistent. On streaming, we have personally seen great return on that, and have been very successful with working with Harry Fox and Music Reports and such. And it's a great benefit for a writer to think they've missed those royalties all these years, and hopefully get a nice check that's more consistent with the performance side that they may have gotten. Now, internationally, might take a little bit more time. Generally these royalties being collected on do take a little bit of time to come in. It's not a very fast sort of system, but at the end of the day, you'll probably see some return.
What's a safe range of time to say that you can go back and collect on?
If you're in that 2 to 3 year realm, you're going to be pretty well set. The closer you start getting to the 5, 6, 7 years, it'd be very hard pressed for us to promise you anything, which leads right into kind of black box royalties. If you wait too long, or if it time passes and we can't get it, there's a very good chance it's swallowed up by this concept of black box, which many people have probably heard. It's kind of one of those terms that even if you don't know much about music publishing, you've probably heard this. So black box royalty is really where, royalties go to die. It's if a society or a streaming service can't figure out who to pay, eventually they need to do something with that money. And it's kind of usually how it works is that it pools and it will get allocated to the industry based on market share, based on revenue. So it's going to probably go to your major publishing companies, of which then usually they do the same within their catalog, allocating those things as kind of like bonuses to the writers in their system based on the market share of their catalog. It's really an unfortunate thing that if your hard-earned royalties are going to someone that is probably making a lot of royalties, but with the industry getting better with data and a lot of these services out there and accessibility to a global network and so on and so forth, my hope is the concept of black box eventually goes away. Maybe it won't go away entirely, but hopefully diminished at the very least, and that these royalties are going for every kind of income source from every type of society are really going to the people that have earned them, that have worked hard to get them. So
yeah, register your stuff, make sure your songs are registered, make sure you have a publishing admin company. It's not hard anymore. Don't let your royalties get paid out to someone who didn't earn them.
Another common question, whether it be about royalties or registering or licensing or whatever it might be, in this day and age, always comes back to streaming. So I think most of you, being creators or songwriters, artists, whatever it is, are pretty familiar with getting your music on these streaming services, and how they generate. Kind of funny enough is that it's the way that a stream breaks down per stream rate can actually be fairly complex because it goes to many different sources. As Julia pointed out earlier, a stream is half performance, is half mechanical. Obviously there's also the master side of that. And when it goes down into your performance stuff, it gets split up between a writer and publisher. So, that one stream, which, is not a set number, it's dependent on many things. Whether it's, does the person listening to that song pay for their service? Is it a freemium account? Listening to the whole song, what country is it in? All these things change that per stream rate, and then it gets split up 4 or 5 times before it ultimately makes it back to you. So it can feel a little overwhelming sometimes.
So I know this question was coming, but we just got one about streaming royalties from Facebook and how that is played out currently.
It's a great question. It's a new service. It's
a newly licensed
service. More importantly, a newly licensed service. Facebook right now is building that infrastructure that many probably know. It took a while for Spotify to build, and it took a while for everybody to do these things. So right now we are licensed with Facebook to collect on those royalties. And the way it is set up now is there was a settlement that Facebook paid out a set amount of royalties to the industry as a whole, again, by market share, that will cover 2 years of them being able to adjust to this industry, of which then royalties will be paid out, new royalties will be paid out on top of that. So if you're starting to see your music pop up in various things on Facebook and Instagram and, all their other services, the easy answer is yes, it's generating royalties, or it will be generating royalties, it will be paid out, we will collect on it. And ultimately, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a great source of potential income for writers and artists. And there will be more like it that, do the right thing and license the music and pay it out, and it's going to be great. It's good for the industry as a whole.
Looking at all these different streaming platforms right here, I mean, is it important to be on all of them? Is there certain ones, certain artists should pick over other ones? How's that play out?
Personally, I think it is something that there is no harm in being on all of them. Exposure is the thing that as an artist you're constantly trying to get more of. Subjecting yourself to one of them to potentially inflate the streaming numbers on one given service may or may not benefit you. To me, having your music as easily accessible as possible is what you should be shooting for. I can imagine there'd be some people that would disagree, but at the end of the day, getting your music out there is important. A personal experience of mine is that I have a friend that eventually signed to a major, and she released an album, and it was, put it on everything she could put it on, and unknown to her, someone eventually picked it up to put it in the Real Housewives of Atlanta, and without her pitching that in any way, just simply having her music out there, she was eventually offered a pretty substantial record deal and publishing deal. And that's, to me, that's the power that's out there of having it everywhere. And at least it's a good place to start.
What I will say is just know where your music is generating royalties. Like we're talking about with Facebook, not every service came out and was ready to license music in the way that it's supposed to be licensed, and not every digital service has that kind of structure in place or that kind of agreement in place with the users. So for example, I see SoundCloud up here. SoundCloud is only monetized for a really small portion of the music that's up there. So if you're going to SoundCloud and uploading your own music, that's not generating any royalties. And like Kyle said, exposure is great, and I know SoundCloud is a really great community for songs to be discovered and shared, and that's wonderful. Just know that when you're uploading your music there, that you shouldn't be expecting to see royalties. If you are, we're going to talk a little bit about distribution later. If you are distributing to SoundCloud through your distributor, those streams are being monetized. It gets a little complicated. Just when you're putting your music anywhere, make sure you're reading the terms of service. You know what you're agreeing to. If you're granting a royalty-free license, don't expect to see any royalties. It really can get kind of complex. And even with the services that are licensed, they're all paying out different rates. So it gets a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
And speaking of crazy, we got a ton of questions about YouTube. I could do an entire webinar on YouTube, I'm sure. And maybe we will. But I'll try and explain this in the most concise terms. But essentially, YouTube is a monetized platform. It's monetized through ad revenue. Performance and mechanical royalties are generated for compositions on YouTube, and that's done through the use of YouTube's Content ID. Parties who have access to Content ID can claim user-generated content, and essentially claiming just means that you can put an advertisement on a video to monetize it. So, a publisher will be able to do that for you. And I'll try and explain how it works, but essentially in an ideal situation, your distributor or your label will deliver their metadata, so the artist name, the release date, album name, all of that, and an audio file. They'll deliver all of that to YouTube. And then that audio file gets scanned and fingerprinted by the Content ID system. And then that is scanned against every video that's ever been uploaded or ever will be uploaded to YouTube. And then we'll place claims on any videos where it matches. So someone uploads a video of them dancing to a song, someone is at a party and the song's playing in the background, all of that would get claimed automatically. Then a publisher will come in and deliver their metadata. So we'll deliver our writer's name, the percentage we control, the territories we control it in, and all of that, and also an ISRC. I think we will talk about this a little bit later as well, but an ISRC is an international standard recording code. It represents one recording. So one song can have multiple recordings. If there's a radio edit, a live version, an acoustic version. Each of those recordings will have its own ISRC. The label will deliver that ISRC when they deliver the audio file, and the publisher will deliver all of the ISRCs that their composition is included in. So those two assets, the sound recording and the composition, will be able to find each other in YouTube's system, and all of those claims that are being made based on those audio files will be claimed. Publishers, because they control the song, not just the recording, can also claim a cover video, a live video. All of that is eligible to be monetized on YouTube. There are some restrictions to what types of videos can be monetized. These listed here on the slide. YouTube recently put these into effect just in the last couple of months. But essentially, for a video to be eligible to be monetized, it has to be on a channel with at least 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time in the last 12 months. Videos on channels smaller than that, if they hit 10,000 views, they're manually reviewed by YouTube's team to see whether monetization can be enabled on that video. And so, those might be able to be monetized as well. And then the rate for a view, people ask a lot, like how many views until I make $1 million, or how much money for 1 million views? And it's really hard to say. It's based on a lot of different factors. One of which is, the type of advertisement. Is it before the video? Did you skip it? Do you have an ad blocker on? The territory in which you watched the video, the time of year. During the holidays, advertisers are paying a lot more for advertising space, so the royalty rate is higher. All different kinds of factors.
Yeah, we had a question come in that definitely comes up quite a bit. So is it possible to claim back composition royalties from YouTube when we have only been monetizing our sound recording for 4 years?
Yes. So retroactive royalties on YouTube are a little bit different than in other places. And until a video is being monetized by an advertisement, it's not generating any royalties. So if nobody is claiming a video, all of the views during that time are not being monetized, and you can't collect on that. However, if one rights holder is claiming a video, so a sound recording owner has a claim on a video, the advertisement is on, it's monetizing, the portion of the royalty is set aside for the composition, they're held by YouTube until the composition owner or owners come in and collect it. So if a video has been being monetized on the sound recording side for 4 years, once the publisher comes in and claims the composition side, all that will be paid out. The past 4 years of monetization will be paid.
Is there a black box for YouTube?
There's not. The same goes for conflicts. If there are multiple rights holders claiming the same piece of content, monetization continues and the money just gets held until the conflict is resolved. So they don't ever say, oh, well, nobody's claimed it within this amount of time to pay it out to our other people. That will sit there and wait for you as long as you go and claim it. Another royalty that I think a lot of songwriters and performing artists specifically forget about is live performance royalties. So when you play a show, that generates a live performance royalty. Venues have licenses with the PROs in their territory, and the PROs will pay you for your gig. So it's really, really important to save your set list, submit them to your society, and submit them to the society in the territory where you played. So if you're touring worldwide, make sure to submit your set list to the territory in that where all of your shows were. Over here on the right-hand side is the setlist submission tool on the Songtrust website. And when CJ goes through the demo of the site later, he'll show you this as well. But we have this here for our clients to tell us all the information that the societies require about their shows, and we'll submit the set list to collect performance royalties.
So what affects publishing? Hopefully after a bunch of that, I know it's hard to digest. You feel a little bit better about the basics of publishing. But something that's very common we get is, someone will come in and use our service and then just wonder where the royalties are. And there's a lot of questions that go into that. And what have you done to potentially earn those? What have you done to generate royalties? And it's a very kind of team effort. So hopefully over the next few slides here, we'll really address what you can do as an artist, as a songwriter, to impact publishing. So one, obviously, much like I was speaking to earlier, is exposure and sharing your music. So you can kind of gauge here is that you have to think about distribution and how you get your music out there and streaming and are you performing? Are you doing gigs, touring, marketing, PR, all those good things is a huge part of this. If you don't do those things, there are no publishing and no one is listening. You just have to think about all those things first, which I think is very common. A lot of people come into it where publishing is the last piece of the puzzle. But as publishing exposure has grown, it hasn't always been the case. And hopefully, by understanding publishing a little bit more, you do realize that the money generated from them is impacted by all these factors. So, I think what we'll speak to a little bit now is distribution, which is, really a key aspect of getting the music out there.
Yeah, we've mentioned the word a lot, but essentially what distribution is just putting your music on digital services in digital stores. I think this was something that, years ago was impossible to do without a major label, to get your CD in a store, but independent distributors for independent artists have come along, like CD Baby or DistroKid, that make it extremely easy to just have your music available worldwide on iTunes, on Spotify, on Apple Music, Pandora, everywhere. And if you want your music to be generating royalties, it has to be available on these services. And like I mentioned before, on the licensed services. And let's talk about an ISRC again. Once you put your music through a distributor, they will typically assign you an ISRC. And so that, like I said before, is the code that represents your recording or recordings. And it's really important to have that code as a writer as well and provide that code to your publisher, because essentially the way royalties are paid out, let's say your song is streamed on Spotify. Spotify says, okay, great. Hey, Mechanical Society in this territory, this song was streamed, this recording was streamed, here's the money for that. And then the society doesn't know who the writer is for that recording. So when your publisher is able to provide that ISRC to say, hey, we control the publishing for this specific recording, the society then knows who to pay. Although an ISRC represents a recording, it is really important on the publishing side as well.
And to touch, on top of that, I would imagine many of you probably are wondering about sync and what it means to share your music and get it placed. It's not something that Songtrust does as far as placements, but there are many services out there that tailor to the independent market that will, you can put your music into their database, and the opportunity for songs to be picked and placed in a Netflix show, a commercial, what have you, is becoming more common. And in a lot of ways, that's what they're looking for is some of these independent songs that, to be honest, that are a little more affordable to use. But it's a great opportunity, should you be able to get them, which, not to downplay how difficult that is, can really be a great driver in exposure and forwarding your career. If you're able to team up with someone that has relationships in sync, in the sync community, that's a huge asset to your team. I would value that very highly as far as when it comes to building a team and pushing your music. Sometimes that might be your manager who has those relationships. It's something to consider. It's a very common question. Sync is, as everyone knows, can be lucrative, can be helpful. So it's just as important to conceptualize that.
So we get a lot of questions about samples and covers. A cover is a performance of a song by someone who did not write the song. So if you cover someone else's song, it just means, someone else wrote it and you performed it. That's not something that a publisher can collect on for you. But the other way around, you as a writer, if someone covers your song, your publisher can collect on that cover. A sample, on the other hand, is a use of a piece of a song, a portion of a song within another one. And that'll usually include the actual sound recording. So, maybe there's a really cool horn line in a song and you want to use it in your song. You take the actual recording of that horn part and, chop it up and throw it throughout your song. And so both of these covers and samples need to be licensed. So a cover, you need a mechanical license in order to record that cover, and that mechanical license comes from the publisher of the original work. So to spin it the other way, you as a writer, if someone wants to cover your song, they need to get a mechanical license from you or from your publisher in order to record that cover. And then further than that, if they want to make a music video, put it on YouTube, they're going to need a sync license from you as the writer in order to put that song in a video. The sync license is negotiated. You come up with the rate yourself. It depends on a lot of things and how the song is being used, how big the song is, but that is a sync license. The mechanical license is a statutory rate. In the US, it's 9.1 cents per copy per song. And then for a sample, there are two licenses that you need to get. One is from the publishers of the original sample, and that's a negotiated rate. And the other is from the label or the owner of the master recording, because you're using that actual audio in addition to the underlying composition of the song. So both of those licenses from the label or the master owner, as well as the publisher, both of those are negotiated.
Yeah, so while that does sound like a lot of work, there are companies now that are making this simpler for people that do want to sample, for instance. Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about what's out there now that people can use that's available?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of, to go into that a little bit, it's just, I had dealt with sampling back when I used to work with some of the majors to some extent, and people wanting to sample major artists. And it is very complex and it's very difficult. And as an independent songwriter, you don't have much power in negotiating those things. And if they're willing to work with you, it's great. And they're probably going to take a large percentage of it and they're going to do those things. And it would also be very common for them to, unfortunately, ignore you and not do those things. And maybe you make the decision to, test the waters and do it anyways. And I certainly wouldn't recommend that. But you've probably seen it happen over the years. And then it becomes a legal thing and you're going down that road. So what CJ is alluding to is there are companies now trying to solve for this and make it a little easier and accessible to get pre-licensed sampling from potentially major catalogs. And one of those people is TrackLib right now, is a relatively new company that we're kind of excited about. And they are working with major labels and publishers to get these rights and get these things pre-licensed, so that as a producer, as a songwriter, you have the opportunity to sample, a Wu-Tang song or, an Eric Sermon song or, whatever it might be, and pay your fees and know that you're covered to use those things. And it's kind of exciting. And hopefully we see kind of a development in that market, because knowing many creators really love the concept of sampling. And as an independent person especially, it can just be very difficult to go down that path.
Yeah, what TrackLib also does is kind of set a portion of the new work that you create using the sample that is allocated for the original writers of the sample. So in addition to getting that license to use the sample in your song, you also in most cases will have to credit the writers of the sample as writers on the new work as well. So you're sharing the copyright with them. They're essentially co-writers on your new work. So yeah, a company like TrackLib makes that really simple. All the negotiating is actually already done. But yeah, just keep in mind if you are planning to sample a work or someone is sampling yours, you become a co-writer on that new work.
Which is probably why if you've ever looked at liner notes or songwriter credits on, a Kanye song or an Eminem song or things like that, there's sometimes 10 or 15 songwriters. It's usually as a result of the numerous samples they've used in any given track. Not always that they contributed to some of the original things in that work. And when you start doing that, the shares get diluted, but hopefully as a result, become very popular as well. So what does it mean to be your own publisher? Imagine many of you who are affiliated may have also affiliated yourself as a publishing entity. And I think there is kind of very much a difference there. By all means, I encourage everyone to affiliate themselves as a publisher and go that route. But it doesn't necessarily make you a publishing company. In my opinion, it's to be a publishing company, you're starting a business. You are representing other songwriters or developing a catalog not solely for yourself. And what, as a result of that, you need to really think about what that all means. The legalities of that. Do you have your contracts in place to sign artists? What are you going to take as a fee from potential clients? Are you going to do co-publishing deals or admin deals? Have you built that network or this infrastructure to house those things? Managing copyrights, it's a lot of data. Do you have relationships in the sub-publishing communities around the world? Do you have relationships in the sync community to pitch music and really expose your clients' music? Do you have marketing capabilities? It really becomes a very large undertaking. I went to college with a lot of people that left school that created their own publishing company overnight. And at the end of the day, there's not a lot there. It takes a long time to build these relationships. And the people that do it should know you're about to invest a lot of time and money. And if you can kind of take a look at this graph, this is based on a case study that we have done and what the money involved in a single year of starting your publishing company. As you can see, it's kind of a lot. There's probably a lot of things you haven't thought of, and that's really not even considering that global network we started talking about and what it means, how much time it takes. The amount of employees, it becomes, it's a huge investment, and having alternatives and opportunities to potentially sign writers and do these and have some aspect of a publishing company now without having to spend all this money is really where we're going into and what Songtrust as a company values. And you're seeing other services in certain industries do similar things. But, if you have the money and you have the time to do this, good luck.
Yeah, so we're just about an hour in on the whole publishing webinar, so hopefully your heads aren't spinning just quite yet. But it really is a complicated side of the music industry, and that's really what allowed Songtrust to become the brand that it is now, is because we identified this need for individual rights owners to be able to collect on their work globally, despite how big and important they were as an artist. You should be able to get paid for the work that you're putting in and the art that you're creating. So yeah, we saw that need. We created a platform that gives everyone the ability to go on and enter the songs they want us to manage, and then go out and register and collect for those works. So yeah, we've been building this network of affiliated partnerships for the last 8 years. And we have a team here that's passionate about everything that we do, about putting songs before everything. and trying to make this whole process much simpler for everyone that wants to be involved in it. So with that in mind, we'd like to give you kind of a closer look of what Songtrust does and the writers that we represent. So we currently are at about 150,000 writers, over 20,000 publishing companies, and well over now 1 million copyrights that we're representing. So actually one of my favorite new statistics is that we are actually representing 1 in 5 new professional songwriters here in the US. They're touching our platform today. So that kind of gives you an idea of the scope of the people that are coming out into the US with new songwriting careers, and they're landing on the Songtrust platform. So we're definitely very excited about that. We're representing all 50 states within the US, and we have clients now within 87 countries throughout the world. And with that many clients throughout the world, obviously it requires us to open up offices throughout the world. So now we are in 8 of the major music cities throughout the world, which also gives us about 40 direct affiliations with performance and mechanical societies. And that allows us to cover well over 100 of the countries where music is being consumed. So that really gives you a broad reaching network of places that you're able to collect your music. I'm pretty sure we are just over 95% of royalties that are generated throughout the world we're able to collect on. So so let's take a look back at the diagram that Julia had gone over previously that goes through the composition and the master recording. If you remember, the master is what your distributor or your label is going to be collecting on, and what publishing admin such as Songtrust collects on is the composition. So the writer share that is generated from the PROs is always going to be sent directly to you as the writer. But the publisher share is what we are going to be collecting on. So we collect the publisher share from the performance societies and the CMOs, as well as collecting the mechanical royalties from companies like HFA and Music Reports here in the US, as well as international CMOs that are collecting mechanicals as well. And then when you go down into the U2 area with the micro sync, we are collecting on the composition, as Julia discussed previously as well. So those areas that are really hard for an individual songwriter to get to is what we're going out and collecting on your behalf. And now let's kind of look at what the difference between like the traditional publishing deal is and what you're going to be getting with Songtrust, which is just your regular admin type of scenario. Traditionally, the deal length of a traditional publisher is going to be upwards of 3 years. With Songtrust, it's a 1-year commitment, and that really is only because it takes roughly 6 to 9 months to really register and begin to see that money coming in. After the first year, you're able to cancel it every time. If you do kind of blow up and it looks like it's time for you to take that traditional publishing route, we're happy to have you graduate Songtrust and move into that traditional deal. It happens a lot of times. It will happen and people will come right back to us, which we love seeing as well, because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. But yeah, looking at the accounting aspect of it, the traditional publishers are paying out only 2 times a year. We're paying out 4. And the traditional publishers are usually going to require that you commit your entire catalog to them previous to working with them and during the term of your time with them. So Songtrust is only requiring that we represent the songs you put onto our platform. So whatever song you decide that you'd like us to represent, that's what we'll do for you. If other songs are already engaged in some type of deal, you don't have to include them. You can only let us represent those individual ones. And obviously, like most of the traditional publishers, they're going to be taking a fairly large share of your copyright for the remainder of the existence of the copyright in perpetuity. So Songtrust, we allow you to keep 100%. We will never take any portion of your copyright. I know we touched on sync briefly. While we don't offer sync promotion, if any request comes in, and it does quite often, what we'll do is we notify our clients right away that there is a request. If you want us to negotiate on your behalf, we'll do so for our normal 15% commission. If you want to negotiate it on your own, you're happy to do so and keep 100% of the fee. So we really do want to make it so you're in full control of your publishing at all times. And we've created this platform that really allows you to go in, see all the royalty reports, see what songs are in there, what the splits are, what co-writers, that no other company is going to allow you to see and have control over. So that's really what makes Songtrust kind of stand out from these traditional publishers.
If I could give a shout out to our dev team, and we've grown a really vast dev team over the years that I think is upwards of 20 people now. that are really focused on building the things that CJ is going to show, and it's very impressive. We're very proud of it, and a lot of exciting things to come in the future from their hard work as well.
Yeah, we have really amazing developers.
Yeah, so with that being said, let's take a look at what they've built for us. So we'll jump right in. So the first thing that you see when you go into the Songtrust platform is going to be our dashboard. It kind of houses your last 2 royalty quarters, as well as your total earnings and some additional resources and distributions from the different societies are available for you to see. And you're able to go in and you can add as many writers to your account as you'd like. So if you're a publisher that represents multiple writers, you can add all of them onto the single account. If it's just you representing yourself, you can create the account just for the one writer, and you can go in, add a songwriter. And what's really neat is if you're at that beginner stage of your career, you're not yet affiliated with a PRO, and we're actually able to register you with ASCAP, BMI, or SOCAN directly through our platform without any additional charge from the PRO. If you're already with a PRO, you can select which one you're with right here. If say you're with ASCAP, you can continue and then enter in your IPI number, any information like that, and then you'll be added onto the account. And once you enter all that information, if you're with BMI or ASCAP, we can actually import all of your song data directly from their database and pull it into your Songtrust account. So it allows you not to have to repeat that process and pull all the information in manually. But yeah, once you're added in, we can then go and look at all the songwriters that will sit on the account. This is just a demo account, so don't worry, there's no privileged information in here. But you can see all the different writers that are gonna be represented, what stage they are in their application status. And then you can begin adding the individual songs right onto the account. So once you go in, you just add your song title, whatever that may be. You can add any songwriter that's on the account. If there's people that helped you write the song that are not represented as a Songtrust client, they can be added as outside writers. Songtrust will never collect for an outside writer, only for the registered members of Songtrust that are on the account. But you can add as many as you want, and you can enter right in the specific split percentages that always do have to add up to 100 in order for the song to be registered properly. And then once everything goes through, you can register the song and we'll send it out to the different societies that we're affiliated with and begin to register it and collect on its behalf. Once everything is in, some of the other features that we have that you can look at, I believe Julia was talking about it earlier, was the global set list submission. And this is a really neat feature because based on where you're touring throughout the world, you will be able to just go in. So let's say you're touring in Australia. These are the exact requirements of what is needed to collect performance royalties from that country. So as you go, you can just enter the information in. If it's a set list you've already done in the past that's in here, you can just add it right there, add everything in, and you're good to go. So no matter where you're going, it just really makes it easier for the people that are on the road and touring to be able to get that extra layer of income coming in for their global performance. The next thing we can kind of look at here is going into our YouTube tool. And what YouTube is really cool with is we allow you to have a monitoring tool that actually becomes smarter the more and more you use it. So as you begin using different keywords and as you begin claiming different songs, our YouTube tool is actually going to start suggesting songs that most likely encompass your composition. So you can go through and manually claim any of the songs that match your composition. You can add different search terms and enter a manual claim by entering the specific URL right into there. So it really gives you full control over any claims and assets on YouTube, which makes it very easy for you to manage all that. The next thing we'll take a look at is the royalty reports. So this is something that almost none of the other companies are going to provide you. It's a really detailed explanation of what's coming into your bank account, right? So you can pick the periods that you're interested in, take a look at the different type of royalties that are being generated. You can dive deeper into all the different statements and reports, see a line-by-line item of all the information that's available, break it down by exactly where it's coming from, how much it was, what type of royalty, what territory, all that's going to be presented right to you. We even have this neat little feature that you can actually see throughout the world where your royalties are being generated from. So you can see exactly, is a there's a significant amount of money coming from Europe. Should I spend more promotion in those territories? Like, is that what's driving a lot of my audience base? It just becomes a lot easier to be able to manage and influence the success of your career. And it's something we're very excited about and happy that our developers were able to put this together. And we're always trying to add new features as we go. So always keep an eye out for what's available. But yeah, that's a quick overview of our demo. Obviously, if anyone is interested in kind of taking a look at, there we go, at a deeper in-depth look at that, you can email me directly and we can set up a time to do a call, or I can set you up with one of my publishing specialists that will go through all that information in a more in-depth view. But we'd be happy to kind of take the time to sit down and discuss all that with you. But that kind of wraps it up for the most part. We'd be happy now to kind of open it up to the Q&A section. So we will give you guys a few minutes to start submitting them. It looks like we already have a lot that have come in. So I'll just start right at the top. YouTube, you have the option to monetize the account through the settings. What is being done differently with Songtrust being involved?
So you can typically monetize, if you have a channel on YouTube, you can monetize your own videos on your own channel, but you most likely do not have the ability to monetize user-generated content on other people's channels. So if people are just uploading videos that use your music, or covering your songs and uploading videos, uploading live videos, you probably don't have access to YouTube's Content ID through your own channel. I think there are some, depending on your partnership with YouTube, there are some situations where you would have that access, but I think in most cases it's not the case. So what we can do is claim all of that user-generated content, and then with the YouTube monitor that CJ just showed, that's being used to find most of those covers, those live videos, the videos that aren't going to be automatically caught by YouTube's Content ID, with the sound recording that's provided by your label or distributor. So we give you access to that tool so that we can really make sure that we are identifying every single video on YouTube that's using your composition and claiming and monetizing those videos.
Perfect. And of course, I don't know how we already didn't get this question earlier, but what is the difference between Songtrust and Sound Exchange?
Oh yeah. So Sound Exchange is really just focused on that record side, on the master side, collecting royalties from various sources on the master side. So it's, we're two halves of a full puzzle on that. It's you can certainly, and by all means, are hopefully collecting from Sound Exchange. And if you're on Songtrust, we're just collecting the other part of that royalty, the publishing part.
Perfect. Can we register a song that is due to be released on the 13th of the month with Songtrust after that date?
So I would encourage any rights owner to put as soon as you have identified what the splits are going to be on that song, whether that's just you or many people, to put them into our system as soon as possible. It's really not contingent to a release date. There are aspects when people want to hold a registration for, so that information doesn't get out into the world. But generally speaking, if you're not concerned about that, getting it in our hands or your publisher's hands, getting it registered as soon as possible will only benefit you in the long run. It kind of avoids that lapse in registration, and then you have to start talking about retroactive and so on and so forth. So yeah, early, even after, you're pretty well protected. I would say when you're focused on it, do it in that moment so you don't forget.
Yeah. When we talked about retroactive royalties, they can be collected, within 2 and 3 years for sure. So, if you put out an album 2 years ago and you're just now learning about Songtrust, it's not too late. Give us your songs. Let's get them registered. Let's collect your royalties before they get, paid out to Katy Perry.
So if I sign up with Songtrust, do I not need to have my own publishing company?
You don't, no. So we well, you can have your own publishing entity, and in that case, we would just be collecting on behalf of that publishing entity. But if you don't have one, that's totally fine. We'll use our publishing entities to collect your publisher share. We'll take our 15% and pay the rest out to you. It really doesn't make any difference whether you have one or not, but you definitely don't need one.
All right. What's the difference between music reports and HFA?
Nothing really. They're essentially the same competitive services. They both represent different DSPs and different services.
Like Spotify or Apple Music or.
Correct.
A good comparison would probably be like, what's the difference between BMI and ASCAP?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although the certain royalties in the digital mechanical realm are going to come from music reports, and others are going to come from HFA. Namely, off the top of my head, it's the difference between collecting your royalties on Spotify versus collecting your royalties on Pandora.
So this is an in-depth question. If you sign a co-publishing deal for one term, get in advance, the term expires and isn't extended and you don't recoup, how long before you can leave the publisher and transfer the catalog to, say, Songtrust?
Unfortunately, if you don't recoup, you're kind of in a tough spot. In many deals, they have their interest until you recoup, and then sometimes they have part of your, the fee, the co-publishing aspect that they took until they say otherwise. It could be life of copyright. It really depends on what you're negotiating. And sometimes it's hard as a new artist to negotiate those things. So whatever songs are in your deal, or really anything you plan on delivering, is kind of subject to you recouping, unfortunately. And that is kind of the gamble one takes by signing those deals. Now, of course, there's always options. They might release you for some reason. You might be able to talk about it, negotiate it, make it work, do some kind of buyout. It's all things worth exploring, but it does become kind of a legal matter. It does become something that you're probably going to have to talk to your publishing rep about.
Yeah, and that's why advances are not as amazing as they may seem. I mean, they are amazing. It's money up front. You can quit your day job. You can focus on music full time. But, if you're accepting a sum of money that you're not going to be able to make back, you could be stuck in that deal forever, really.
Yeah, so Kyle will definitely be able to touch on this one. What happens with the songwriters of Spain now that the guy has so many problems?
Oh, great question. It's complicated. Not to use that as a crutch, but there's Sagai is going through some things right now, and they're going to have to figure it out. And the governing body in music publishing, called CISAC, has decisions to make on what they do. For some of you that might not know, there's just some legal matters about royalties being misplaced in different things, and it's a tough situation. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon in the world of performance societies, especially internationally, where it can get a little crazy sometimes. So if you're a writer in Spain, if you're affiliated with Sagai, I would encourage you to just monitor the situation and see what unfolds. I don't think that they're, necessarily a bad organization. It's probably a few bad eggs. And things might change. The landscape might change. There might be some competitive options there. There might be another society from a different country that potentially collects. I mean, there's all these scenarios that could play out. And as a publisher, as a songwriter, we're kind of just having to wait and see what happens. It's a great question. It's complicated, and it will be interesting to see what unfolds in the next 6 to 12 months, probably.
Are they able to move their catalog?
So there was a similar situation that just happened in Greece, of which there is a time, assuming it would fall in the same realm, what happens is you'll have a time to move your catalog to another option. If you don't, then they might move it for you. That hasn't been decided yet in Spain or Sagai. It's very common that Sagai could stick around. If you still, and historically speaking, Sagai has been a very large society in the publishing industry. But if you want to leave regardless, you can start initiating that conversation with Sagai and start exploring your options. If you're no longer affiliated with Sagai, they give you back your catalog. There are a couple new services popping up in Spain that I know of that aren't quite there yet, so you might have to wait. But some of the neighboring countries that have societies you can affiliate with. You could also affiliate in the US with ASCAP or BMI and go that route. It might not be the best option for you, but it is an option. But yeah, any Sagai members, just monitor it. No one really knows what's going to happen yet.
On a lighter note, where do I find my IPI number?
Oh, your IPI number is generated by your PRO. You may receive it in an email from them when you first get affiliated. If not, you should be able to search for yourself in their public rep search. Just be aware that you will likely also receive a member ID or some kind of code like that from your society, and that's different from your IPI. Your member ID will identify your account within your PRO's website, but your IPI is your identifier as a songwriter. So that's going to be across any society where your songs are registered. It's usually about 9 digits, so that should help you figure it out.
All right, let's see what else we have. How can I find out if someone owns part of my publishing? So I guess someone making a claim on part of my publishing.
Good question.
If you see your songs, you can look them up in the public rep search at some societies. Not all of the societies have public repertory searches, but if you do look your song up and you see that a publisher is claiming, I wouldn't imagine that a publisher would just kind of claim a portion of your copyright and try, to commit fraud that way. There's usually a pretty good explanation for something like that. The most likely answer is that they're claiming on behalf of your co-writers, if your co-writers have publishers, or you may have somewhere agreed to give up part of your publishing. Another thing is, one of our partners is CD Baby, and if you opt into CD Baby's publishing admin service, CD Baby Pro, we're actually handling all the back end of that. So you might see, CD Baby claiming your publishing, and that's what that is. And they're collecting on your behalf, so all of that money is making its way back to you. If you do see that a publisher is claiming and should not be, there's usually contact information listed there. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out to them. But also if you're signed up with Songtrust, you'll see Songtrust collecting your publishing as well. But yeah, all of that money is making its way back to you. So
another, to further on that, if you register your works upfront and are very proactive about it, and you include your ISRCs and all of your correct metadata, if someone tries to claim your song or your ISRC or the composition, it would go into conflict. So by being a good user, by getting all of your songs registered upfront as quickly as possible, in essence, should someone try to claim something that isn't theirs or a confusion, you're kind of catching it. That conflict would make its way back to us or to you, or through your PRO, however it would happen, and you'd be able to address it. What I think I mentioned earlier, the idea of conflicts and all these things are not uncommon. There are some bad users out there hoping to game the system and do these things. So
and also just
diligent,
inconsistent metadata.
Absolutely. So being diligent on your end is probably the best way to approach that.
Yeah, so let's talk fees for a second with the different services and providers that are out there. Songtrust is a one-time registration fee of $100 per songwriter. That's going to be represented as a Songtrust client on the platform. And then it's a flat 15% commission for the royalties we bring in on your behalf. So the writer share that goes directly to you never comes through Songtrust. Only the publisher share and the mechanicals that are coming through are what we are taking the commission on for what we're going out and registering and collecting on. So I know there's a number of different payment structures and fee structures for other companies that are out there? How, for instance, does a company like Cobalt, I saw that question come up, how are they set up differently than how Songtrust is set up?
With Cobalt or any independent publisher or major publisher, those fees are going to be negotiated. Depends. If you have, as a writer, as a creator, do you have a lot of the power there? Are you blowing up? Are you doing great things? Are you independent? Are you a little new? It all changes that. They probably have some competitive admin deals that are in that 15% range. They've probably done deals that are less than that for writers that are, they just really want it. Co-publishing deal, obviously, taking ownerships, doing those things. There are some services out there that have similar fees in that 10 to 15 to 20% range, but historically I've used sub-publishing relationships internationally, and it's a fee that's not often discussed. It's something that's taken off the top of your 10 or 15% that's being marketed. And
yeah, basically there are additional fees being taken by all of the third parties that are assisting in getting your royalties before you get to your administrator, who will take whatever fee they've advertised.
Yeah, so we're avoiding that by going directly to the individual societies, not using a sub-publisher to put his hand in your pocket one more time.
Correct. We avoid sub-publishing relationships completely. And as a result of that, it kind of goes back to those slides in the beginning of how much time and money spent on building this global network. And Songtrust has put tremendous resources into building that for the sole purpose of keeping fees as low as possible, getting as much money back to the creators as possible, and making it fast and making it simple. Many of you probably are aware that publishing at this point often is paid out at a quarterly rate or maybe even a biannually rate, whereas distribution usually pays monthly. So by adding in sub-publishers and extra parties, it just delays those payments. So not even talking fees, but even that, so by us avoiding that, it truly is 15%. And we just try to keep it simple as much as possible, and it's not always the case.
Yeah, and so we're gonna wrap up with one more question. What we have here is, how long does it take to register a song?
It depends on the society, but we say it can really take 6 months to get a song fully registered, and then start seeing royalties from that registration. So if you register a song with us today, we'll validate all the metadata as quickly as possible and send it out to be registered. And typically your home society, wherever you're affiliated, will be the quickest registration. They'll get that done fairly quickly. And then internationally, they kind of process registrations on their own schedule. So we're a little bit at the mercy of their timelines. But I think within the 6-month range is when we see a song get registered fully, and usually much sooner than that.
Yeah, I think something to really speak to there is, it also depends on where you are at in any given process. Registering a song, if you're a new client of us or any publisher, is going to take a little bit longer because we need to establish that relationship between us, you, and any given society, or in our case, every society, and then register the song. They need to identify that we are your admin service. After that fact, it becomes much quicker. The song we would send maybe a month later, a new song that you gave to us might only take a couple weeks or a week or a couple days. I mean, it really depends on the society, as Julia said, and where you are in that timeline. I think we have a lot of members who are used to putting their songs directly into their member services at ASCAP, and use that in comparing that to how we would register a song. And it's just a little different. We do a lot of vetting and make sure your metadata is very clean before sending it. And when we do send it, we send it in a partner fashion that the societies treat a little differently than, say, putting it directly to your member services account or something. It's just kind of a different ballgame. But I think the thing to really note is that how that generates royalties, the way any given society would prioritize registering a song is with payment timelines in mind. It's going to take you 6 to 9 months, most likely, for the majority of your royalties to collect. So they use that as an indicator on how to best register songs. As you can imagine, Songtrust gets a lot of songs, but these societies are getting bombarded from every creator, from every publisher. It's a lot of data. So it can take some time. Could probably be frustrating, especially when you're used to working with a distribution company where it's a little simpler. But everybody has your best interest in mind and is using that timeline to our benefit. And Songtrust is a huge advocate for speeding up this process. We really are trying to build tools that allow us to get your songwriter information out as quickly as possible, and also working with the societies to help them prioritize and process things as fast as possible too. My goal and my hope, and a lot of what I work on in Songtrust, is shortening that timeline. And over the course of the next couple months or couple years, whatever it is, I anticipate we're going to see some really great returns on that.
Perfect. All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the webinar. And keep an eye out for the next one, definitely. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletters to stay up to date with all the information that we're releasing. You can also check out our help center for more information on Songtrust and general music publishing. And then follow us on all of our social platforms at Songtrust. We'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.